August 1943. 18,000 feet over the Solomon Islands. Lieutenant Richard Bong is alone. 3 Japanese Zeros just ambushed his flight, and the lead Zero is now glued to his tail. Bong does exactly what his flight manual taught him. A hard bank with full throttle. But the Zero turns tighter. The Japanese pilot is already sliding into firing position. Bong has 4 seconds to live. What he did next wasn't in any training manual. In fact, it was forbidden. Bong rolled his P-38 Lightning completely inverted, upside down, and jammed the stick forward. His body was slammed against his straps. Blood rushed to his head, and his vision flashed crimson. He was momentarily blind, pulling negative Gs in a maneuver that doctors, engineers, and his own commanders had warned would kill him. In 1943, American pilots were being slaughtered. They were dying because they were fighting an enemy who had rewritten the rules. The Japanese Mitsubishi A6M0 was a legend. It was lighter, more agile, and could outturn anything the Allies had. American pilots were trained in the classic dogfight, a horizontal turning battle. But against a Zero, this was suicide. A P-40 Warhawk or an F-4F Wildcat that tried to turn with a Zero would find the enemy on its tail in seconds. The kill ratios were 3-to-1 against the Americans. The Zero was a god of the turning fight. The problem wasn't just the plane, it was the pilots. Japanese naval aviators were the most experienced in the world, with thousands of combat hours. They were masters. American pilots were told to use boom and zoom tactics. Dive from above, fire, and climb away. But what happened when you missed? What happened when a Zero did get on your tail? The textbook answer was to dive away. But the Zero was fast enough to follow, and the moment you tried to pull up, it would be right there. The impossible situation had a solution, a desperate, illegal move. But to understand why it was so terrifying, you have to understand why it was forbidden. There were 2 reasons you never flew a negative G maneuver. The first was your body. When you pull a positive G turn, a normal turn, blood is forced to your feet. Your vision narrows and you gray out. But when you pull a negative G turn, shoving the stick forward while upside down, the opposite happens. All the blood in your body rushes to your head. Pilots called it the red out. The pressure behind their eyes would be immense. Tiny blood vessels in their face and eyeballs would burst. Their entire field of vision would turn a horrifying, blinding crimson. Aviation medicine in 1942 was clear. This maneuver was dangerous, disorienting, and could cause retinal damage. You were, for all practical purposes, blinding yourself in the middle of a dogfight. The second reason was your plane. Most Allied fighters, like the Wildcat and the P-40, used a float-type carburetor. The moment you went inverted and pulled negative Gs, the fuel in the carburetor float bowl would be forced away from the engine's intake. The engine would starve, sputter, and quit. You would become a 7-ton, unpowered, falling brick, while blind, with an enemy on your tail. This was the choice American pilots faced: certain death from a Zero's 20mm cannons, or a 1 in a million forbidden move that would blind them and stall their engine. But a few desperate pilots, like Richard Bong, discovered something else. When Bong went into his red out, he was flying a P-38 Lightning, and the P-38 had a secret. Its twin Allison engines didn't have a float-type carburetor. They were fuel-injected. When Bong flew upside down, his engines kept running. He pulled through the blinding 2-second red out, and when his vision cleared, the Zero was gone. The Japanese pilot, anticipating a normal turn or a dive, had overshot, completely baffled. Bong had just found the cheat code to surviving the Zero. This wasn't an isolated incident. Pilots across the Pacific were discovering the same secret. Major Thomas Lynch of the 39th Fighter Squadron was the first to not just escape with the move, but to weaponize it. In April 1943, when a Zero locked onto him, Lynch rolled inverted and dove. The Japanese pilot, a master of his craft, tried to follow. And that's when he discovered the Zero's fatal flaw. The Zero was a masterpiece of lightweight design. It was built to be agile in a positive G-turn. But in a high-speed, negative G dive, its lightweight frame couldn't handle the stress. Its wings would flutter violently. Its controls would lock up. If the pilot pushed it too hard, the plane would literally tear itself apart. Lynch dove away at 400 miles per hour, an upside-down maneuver the Zero pilot could not follow. Lynch leveled out, his P-38's superior energy intact, climbed back up, and ambushed the now disorganized Japanese formation, shooting down two of them. This forbidden tactic, known as the split S, or inverted dive, spread like wildfire. It was never written in an official manual. It was a ghost tactic, passed from veteran to rookie in the ready rooms of Guadalcanal and New Guinea. It was the great equalizer. The P-47 Thunderbolt, a heavy jug that was a death trap in a turning fight, was a monster in a dive. Its pilots embraced the tactic. The F-4U Corsair, with its massive 2,000 horsepower engine, could use the inverted dive to escape and instantly convert that speed back into altitude. Japanese pilots were in a state of shock. Their one perfect tactic was now useless. The Americans refused to turn with them. They would only dive, attack, and if a Zero got on their tail, they would simply roll over, dive away upside down, and vanish. The hunters had become the hunted. This wasn't the clean, glorious air combat of movies. This was a brutal, desperate innovation. Pilots would land with splitting headaches and blood-red eyes from the burst vessels, a physical price they paid for survival. They had learned to override their most basic human instinct. They had learned to fly blind, to embrace the red out, and to trust that a maneuver their own doctors called impossible was the only thing that would bring them home. The tide of the Pacific Air War was turned not just by America's industrial might, but by a handful of desperate pilots who, with seconds to live, chose to rewrite the rules and fly in a way no one on Earth had ever dared to before.